We are live. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
You can see my name at the bottom. It's Dan, and I'm with Matt this evening.
Hi, everyone.
And we're going to continue our Thursday evening live chats. So usually you'll see 3 or normally 4 of us, but it seems like everyone's on holiday this week. It must be something to do with the kids being off school. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, very jealous. Although for us up here, the kids aren't off school yet. I think it's next week.
Oh, they're not?
Yeah.
Okay, so a week behind then there. I always love it when the kids are off school because I don't have children, but what it does mean is the roads are a lot quieter. So getting around is like the best.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But no, it's one of those things that always depends where you are in the country. I had 2 friends that were both teachers that were a couple, taught in different schools that just crossed the county line, and they always had different half terms to each other. So it just depends where you are. Yeah.
Well, we've got a few really good topics to talk about tonight. So if you're watching live or you're going to watch shortly or a bit later on, stay tuned. There's some really good topics to talk about. And actually from myself, where we cover Berkshire way, and we've got Matt over in Telford, we'll be able to cover a wide area. So between us, hopefully give you some insights as to what's going on at the minute and a bit of advice. So let's start, shall we? Let's start with this one. So are we seeing a decline in buyer confidence right now? So properties coming onto the market, I suppose the question is, are they still selling for good values, or are buyers losing confidence in where things are? What do you think, Matt?
I think it's pretty much swings and roundabouts. If you just look at numbers, this time last year in the Telford area, in 2022, it was roughly about 33 days to get to a point where you're sold subject to contract. Okay. This year, 2023 now, it's about 51. So it's taken that little bit longer, which to me would suggest there's a little bit of a loss in confidence. But also, when you look at the actual number of instructions there are still the same number compared to this time last year. So, yeah, new instructions are still happening. Sales are still happening. It's just taking that little bit longer.
So the confidence is there still for people to list their property to want to move, but actually maybe it's just taking a little bit longer to find that price. I actually think the buyer's confidence, which might seem a bit against the grain, but I think the buyers that are out there are confident. Yeah. I actually don't think that they're dropping in confidence. I think there's some drop in numbers, and my belief or feeling to that is because a lot of people may have forced their move they would have done now a bit earlier in the year or last year. So we're always going to see a little bit of a drop. But actually, base rates sort of settled down, hasn't it? And we'd like to think that'll continue and maybe drop into next year. Mortgage rates have certainly settled and become the new norm. I think people are getting used to. And it seems like more of a stable market for buyers to be able to move in.
Absolutely, yeah. With the mortgage rate stabling as well, they said people are getting used to that new normal. We're not going to see mortgage rates that were, 1% again I don't think for quite a while.
No, I hope they do. So I've got a remortgage next year, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, we had to do it this year, and it's been a bit of a squeaky bum time, shall we say? But we've managed to get a good rate because we've got a decent mortgage broker, which I think is probably one of the best things you want when you're looking to buy or sell. Is someone that's going to point you in the right direction. But yeah, as they're starting to stabilize, and people are still going to want to sell the house, people are still looking to buy their houses, it should still tick through.
Yeah, I think so. And I think actually that the confidence from buyers will tick into next year. Because we know, as we always say, new year, new me, coming into your new year with Christmas out of the way. And we see a lot of influx of properties coming to the market, wanting to move, wanting to get it done in the first part of the year, maybe planning for schools next year, things like that. So it's always going to be busy in January. And I think this year will be no different. I think this year will be really busy in January. And we're leading into that nicely. A story recently, actually, we had one go up for sale last week at 475,000 and 3 offers within 5 days, and sold just a tad over the asking price. And yeah, great buyers there who are all still looking now. So I think the confidence is there, maybe slightly less in terms of the amount of buyers.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one.
So you mentioned a really good stat a minute ago. What was it? How many days on average in Telford from listing on Rightmove to sold?
51 days at the moment.
Okay. Well, I've got a question for you, which will lead into our next one. So this is why you should not cheap out when using choosing your conveyancer. I could talk about this for years. We'll both give our sort of thoughts on it. But there's actually, what's really interesting is the time from therefore sold to completion.
Yeah.
And your conveyancer plays a big part in that. There obviously can be other external factors and so forth, chain length and things like that. But on the whole, your conveyancer plays a huge part in how long that process is. And I don't know how to share it right now. I'm just looking at some figures in terms of the average from sold to completion in the RG area as a total.
Okay.
And on average, it's about 180 days with estate agents from sold to completed. Now, that's off hard facts from a website we use called 20EA. I kind of worked that in months. It's about 5 months or so, isn't it? Or maybe more. It's a long time for them to go through. On average, Avocado is a bit less. Just a little plug there. We're at 140. So I thought they might let us know that. But I think it might surprise people in how long it may take to actually go through.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a little bit quicker up here in the TF postcodes. We're currently at 122 days from sold to completion.
Yeah.
But it's always worth the merits, isn't it? About getting many quotes from different conveyancers and pick which one's going to be the best one for you. And I think it is a good rule of thumb to never go with the cheapest offer.
Yeah, I'd agree. Usually speaking, the cheaper can be those the large conveyancing firms, where it's almost like a big mill that just you go in one end and come out the other at some point, because it's the business is there in one, and you get, unfortunately, you get not the bad people, but you get juniors who may be a bit less experienced and so forth. So when you pay a bit more, you get a bit more quality, don't you? In terms of time frame.
And all those cheap quotes, well, not all of those cheap, but some of those cheap quotes as well, could only sometimes just include the base legal fees. And then when it comes to adding things on, like the property transfer on the land registry, things like that, suddenly the price starts to move up a little bit again and again. So it's always worth double checking what's actually included in your quote as well.
I mean, what tips would you give people when trying to, what sort of 2 tips would you try and give people when thinking of choosing their conveyancer? And by the way, people are listening, conveyancer, we mean solicitor, the solicitor, just in case you didn't know, is going to handle the sale and purchase for you. What couple of tips do you get when trying to pick the right one?
I would actually say one of the biggest tips is to pick a local conveyancer. When we bought our house, we went with someone local, and it was really handy if there's any other paperwork to sign. Rather than having to wait to post it off, we could just pop to the office and hand it over at reception, and it was just done, essentially. So it's a one way of speeding up things a little bit more. It's just to find someone local that you can actually go to if you need to. And there are even now conveyancers that work on a self-employed basis that can even come to you. It's just about finding that right match and hopefully get things sped up a little bit.
Yeah. I see. And Sanjay, sorry, just put on here. I've noticed some solicitors work part-time. Maybe this is a good question to ask before choosing who you use. Well, yeah, absolutely, Sanjay. I mean, I think if you're paying the same value for somebody, you're going to want to make sure you're getting as most of their attention as you possibly can. I've got to appreciate a lot of them have high caseloads and they'll be dealing with lots of people. But I suppose if they're working part-time, if their caseload's the same level as others that are full-time, it's certainly going to get a little bit less attention, which can be not what you want. I think, yeah, great points in terms of how you pick the solicitor and who you go with. The local part for me is really important as well, on a slightly different spin. So myself and Neil sell quite a lot of properties in Shinfield Meadows. And if you know the Shinfield Meadows area and where they are, the properties from the developers were built on what was the university land, Reading University land. And there's a lot of paperwork and clauses to go through and able to make sure these homes go through smoothly. And it can be a bit of a nightmare, certainly if you don't know what you're looking at. So having either a local solicitor who knows it or an experienced solicitor who's dealt with sales on that particular development before, that's the questions I would ask. So if you're selling a property which is relatively new, within say 5 to 8 years, try and find out which solicitors handle most of the sales. They're going to be used to the regular questions and used to how to get the right information, because that can certainly speed things up. If you've got somebody that doesn't know the area, doesn't know the development, it could cause big problems, or even potentially your sale to fall through. Couple of messages from people. So we'll say hello. Evening, Neil. He's said, question I got asked yesterday. Can we move by Christmas? Can we move by Christmas, Will? If you were lucky enough to be on the market tomorrow, which is Friday, and let's say you had an offer come in on Monday from somebody with nothing to sell, could you move by Christmas?
I mean, you could give it a good go. It all depends, once again, if you've got good conveyancers. If, like I said, if there's no chain involved, it maybe. It's entirely one of those. It depends on the actual individual situation, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely people will move before Christmas or therefore want to, but there is a possibility. So, there are things you can do to speed up the process. If you're a cash buyer in a home and you know what you're buying, and you can indemnify against your searches, for example, and just get the process done quite quickly. There's an option there to speed it through. So it depends on the commitment of the seller and the buyer to move quickly. But on the norm, I would probably be saying it's more likely to be end of January. You're going to take a couple of weeks out of Christmas for people being off and so forth and close down as well. So won't be around. A few more questions we've got. So thanks for that, Neil. Shona, is the speed at which they respond to a quote to work for you indicative of how fast they respond to you indicative of how they respond whilst working for you? What do you think?
Yeah, yes and no. I'm very much on the fence with everything today. It can be a good sign that they're quick to respond to you, but it also could be a sign that they're just quick to get work in. And then if it's a big conveyancing company that deals with lots of different properties and new builds, if they see ones on there that, I say, a new build that isn't yet complete, built and ready to move in, they might push it back to the bottom of the pile. They might take them a little bit longer to get back to you with any questions, because in their mind there's no rush. So it is entirely dependent on the situation and what you're looking to buy, what you're looking to sell, who you're with. Too many factors really to say that one thing is going to be a sign whether they get back to you quickly or not.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, they could have a sales team that just wants to get your business in, and then they pass it on to a solicitor that's in the background working. I think for me, the biggest thing I'd say, and an overall tip, when you're working with a solicitor to sell your home, try and speak to the actual solicitor and deal with them personally, who's going to look after your sale, because you sometimes get a solicitor and then you get their admin, and you may never speak to the actual solicitors dealing with stuff for you and doesn't get your case. And I think it's really important you have that relationship with them as well. As you do with your agent, like with us, I think that's important. And if you tend to go for a more local established solicitor, you're going to get that contact.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. So we've covered why do you not cheap out when picking your conveyancing solicitor. The next thing we'll cover is this one. Should you wait to buy your next property? What a question, because that is actually, there's a number of answers.
Oh, yes, definitely.
There's a number of answers. What's your thoughts on, if you're in the market right now? Let's take it from a view of a first-time buyer to start with. If you're a first-time buyer watching this, you've saved up, you've done amazing work, you saved up your 10% deposit, you've got your money and your mortgage ready to be a rock and roll. Should you wait? Would you go and buy now, or would you wait?
I would start looking, if it was me. Mortgage rates have settled as much as they are going to. So, that's not going to change. That is the new normal. And those mortgage rates aren't going to go back down to what they were. But also, house prices are all relative to each other as well. So some people are saying that, house prices have come down a little bit, which means, if you're a first-time buyer, that's great. It means the house is going to be slightly cheaper overall. But if you're looking to sell yours and then buy another, if your house has gone down a little bit in price, the house you're looking to buy has also gone down a little bit in price. So it's all relative to each other. So for me, I wouldn't say now isn't a bad time to buy. I would say this is now time to maybe start looking now that everything's settled a little bit. Yeah,
definitely. I think the difference between now and 6 months ago is the sting's been taken out of how quickly things will move. So potentially, as a first-time buyer, you might have a little bit more wiggle room to get a better value on a home in terms of the offer you make. That's the reality. You may as well be truthful about it. If something's been on for a number of weeks, it's not been moving, it's likely that there may be an offer to be made. But equally, if you're selling a home or buying a home at the moment, as you were alluding to, it's relevant, isn't it, with the movement in the prices? And I've actually found we've been dealing with a lot more people that see a house they really want to buy, and then they're looking to market the home, coming to us to do both. And they would never have had a chance to view it last year. Never. So the difference is now they're able to. So actually, it's a really good time to move if you're a home buyer or home mover, should I say, selling and buying. It's a fantastic time to do it. It's a lot more. You've got a lot more opportunity to be able to pick the right property and find the right buyer for yours, and so on and so forth. It would have been impossible a year ago, and that's what we were seeing. Another comment as well. Oh, we've got a yo. What's up? And I don't know how to say that name. Is it Hybrids? I think, if I've got that right, Hybrids Venom. That's a funky name. What's better, to rent or buy? I think that's completely down to your personal circumstances. So, oh, it's me, Austin. Hi, Austin. This must be your gamer tag. So thanks for dropping a note, Austin. What's better, to rent or buy? This is completely down to your personal circumstances. So I bought a home when I was a bit younger, an apartment. If I was in a position where, I think now there's a lot more people that work from home. There's a lot more people that have jobs that maybe not tied into an area. If I was now 20 years old and having a job that didn't tie me to an area, I'd probably rent until I'd worked out where I wanted to be. It makes me a bit more free. But that's what if you wanted to do that. If you want to be a homeowner and you want to get your foot on the ladder and grow up and get to that family home, if that's what you want, then you need to be buying and working that out, which is challenging to get the money saved up. But at the same time, it's really rewarding when you get there and get to where you want to be. So I think it's really a personal thing for each individual. I don't think one's better or worse, but I would say renting's bloody expensive as well at the moment. So what do you think, mate?
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you there. Definitely look at renting if you're not quite sure where you want to settle down, what you want to do, whether you want to be north of the country, south of the country, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, whatever you want to do. Renting is the opportunity there to test out what feels right for you. But then when you get to the point where I like this area, and you've got that deposit saved up, that is when you should start looking at buying, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, sorry for an on the fence answer again. Renting is expensive, but gives you freedom. Buying is great when you get up on the ladder and you know where you want to live. It's definitely like that. Right, we'll finish with estate agent horror stories. Now, we would have had more horror stories. There would have been more people speaking. However, I've been doing this for a long time, so I could probably rack up a couple in my mind about things that have happened. But being the spooky time of the year it is, coming up to Halloween, do you want to start us off with yours? What horror story have you got?
Sure.
Keep it clean.
So our horror story is actually when we bought this house, our estate agent horror story.
So yours is from a buyer's point of view, is it?
Absolutely, yeah. So this house had been on the market for nearly 2 years when we bought it, because it needed a lot of work doing to it, essentially. And when we got to the point, we viewed it, we put an offer in, and we could just tell that the estate agent putting the offer into wasn't actually passing the offer on to the seller, and they were just outright basically saying, no, they won't go for that to start with. We eventually got the key, but we bought the house, and then it took about 5 to 6 months for that to go through from sold subject to contract to actually picking the keys. And the only time we heard from our estate agent in that period was when the offer was accepted, and when we got told, oh, you can come pick up the keys today. That was the only contact we had from them the entire time. Even to the point where poor old Elliot was actually phoning up the seller's solicitors to ask, look, there's a blockage somewhere. No one's telling us anything. Is there anything that we can do? Because we know they're not really supposed to tell us anything. They can't tell us anything with the seller's solicitors. But is there anything we can do on our end to help nudge things along? So there's a problem somewhere. And after that, that's when things started getting moving. It's only about a few weeks after that we actually got the keys. But yeah, it was just a complete lack of contact the entire 5-6 months from offer to getting the keys.
Yeah, that's crazy. There's so many things that are wrong with that, and there's so many things that us at Avocado try to do differently to make sure that never happens. But even just the day of completion, making sure you know when you can get your keys, who's meeting you, where to go, that's so important. That's such a small part of the long journey, isn't it? So it's crazy you never had any contact.
Absolutely. And now I feel like as well, because we've been on the receiving end of that terrible experience, we know what we would have appreciated as buyers. So we're able more to provide that for our clients, essentially. We know what terrible service looks like as a estate agent. We know what to avoid and what to give you in return.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a couple. Now, one or two of them I don't think I can really say. It's not past, what's the watershed time? 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock? But I'll tell you one, if you can, I'm going to build the panic up. If you can imagine this, right? So I had maybe been an estate agent for about 3 weeks. So I was new to it. And I was sent out on a busy Saturday to an open house. And the open houses we did are not like the ones we do now, which are controlled and by appointment. These open houses were, honestly, there was 30 people in the house within 1 hour at the same time. They could come whenever they wanted. So you give an hour time slot, 30 people were booked in. And what happens is everyone just turns up at the start thinking they're going to be the first in, and you end up with 30 people there. But it's not just 30 people, it's 30 couples, and some with children and some with parents. You've actually, honestly, there must have been about 60, 65 people when I arrived. Now, I've come into the office. I've only been there 3 weeks. I've been given my keys for the day, given my diary for the day and which appointments to go to and where I'm going. And I've turned up and I've been given the wrong key.
Oh, no.
But can you imagine? It starts at 9. I'm there, just got there a couple of minutes before, trying to say hello to everyone, nervous. And I'm trying to open the door like this. And it's just not going in. And the blind panic, and you're just settling in. Everything just comes on top, and you're like, I don't know what to do here. I'm going to have to tell everybody I don't have the keys. And it's like a 15-minute round trip back and forth to get the set of keys. So, yeah, that was a horror story. I did go back, get the keys, obviously let them all in. To be honest with you, it was such a long time ago. I can't remember what happened. I'm sure the house sold at some point. But yeah, it was that was for me an absolute horror story. It was scary. But on the other side of that, I felt for all the people who wanted to view. So they weren't controlled. They weren't told what was going on, and just shoved in there. So, right, to finish up, we've got a couple of last questions, Bud, and then we're wrapping up to just over 20 minutes. So, Lauren, hi, Lauren. But evening both. I've had recent conversations with potential sellers who are asking, is the market still in a strong position, and are things starting to get quiet before Christmas? Should I wait until the new year? What are your thoughts? I think we've covered some of this, haven't we? I don't know. I don't know if you've seen a property you want to buy. There's buyers out there right now. The quality of buyers, I think, before Christmas are just as good as anyone else. So it's all about you. If you want to move now, then crack on and do it. If you feel more comfortable doing it in January, then do it in January. I don't think there's a good or a bad time unless it's the week or two before Christmas, literally in December.
Yeah, it's just, if you're cutting it too fine to Christmas, I think it will be a bit quieter. But we all know January, things pick up anyway. So even if you are on the market before Christmas, it will still roll over into January and be one of the first ones out there as well.
Absolutely. And a hot tip for anyone watching this at some point who's thinking of selling and want to do it next year. To be fair, between Christmas and New Year is one of the largest, if not the largest, spike in Rightmove. In terms of how many people are viewing and looking at Rightmove, they're the biggest spike in interest. So actually being on in between that period for January is a really good thing to do. It's a way to beat the rush. So if you want to sell in January, you probably want to be getting your details done in December. Just don't pick a snowy day, so that if it's still on the end of January, it looks like it's been on for ages. That's one thing. Do that quite often. And one last thing from Ben. Was in Shinfield today. Saw plenty of avocado sold boards, something else then, boards, but not many from others. How are you and Neil selling more in the area than anyone else? Well, thanks, Ben. Appreciate you picking up on that, buddy. We actually had a valuation today. It's come on the market. Lovely house in Arborfield. He said the similar thing, actually. He's always around the area and sees more of ours sold. Quite frankly, if we took everything away, we did obviously got the amazing marketing, the videos, the promotions, ourselves pushing it and getting the right people in. But we're honest with people and tell them the right price from the start. I think for me, that's one of the biggest things. If you've got an agent you can trust who looks you in the eye and tells you actually that's what the value needs to be, doesn't tell you what you think you want to hear and then reduce it 2 weeks later, you will get a great buyer in the first 2 to 3 weeks. You have a really good chance of doing that. There's far too many reductions. Did you know in RG2 9, which is Arborfield and Shinfield, that 60%, roughly speaking, of properties this year have been reduced in price. Yeah. We're quite proud. We're me, myself, and Neil are sat at 11%, which is a really good figure comparatively compared to everywhere else. So I think the key to it is getting that price right at the start, amongst everything else that we do at Avocado. So thank you for everyone who made a comment and dropped a question in. Hopefully this has been helpful. This video will still be on all of our pages. It will be on LinkedIn and YouTube for you to watch afterwards as well. And if you've got any questions after, just drop them in, and one of us will definitely come back to you and give you any answers. But otherwise, enjoy your it's Thursday evening. I was going to say Friday then. Enjoy your Thursday evening.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. See you later.
Bye.